the audio system? This, I repeat, is just a test of the audio system. Fantastic.
Okay, I'm showing right at the scheduled start time.
Yes, we'll be starting shortly. We're still here.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll be in the room here with you. Just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple more minutes, Tony.
Sure, thank you.
Do you guys have a list of who's speaking today?
Let me see if I can give a list. We're only going to have two speakers, the sheriff and Captain Powers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tony, we're ready to start.
Great, just give me a few moments of silence. The next time you hear my voice, we'll be live, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Is there a problem opening this thing up? Or is that speaker?
No, you'll be fine.
locked in there?
You're fine. You're fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by. Welcome to the LA County Sheriff Press Briefing regarding Tiger Woods. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session, and instructions will be given at that time. If you should require assistance during the call, please press star, then 0. I would now like to turn the conference over to our host, Mr. Alex Villanueva. Please go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I am not Alex Villanueva. My name is John Satterfield. I'm the captain of Sheriff's Information Bureau. And today, our order of speakers will be Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva, and the captain of Lomita Sheriff Station, James Powers. After they speak, we'll open it up for some questions. And then after all of that, the sheriff will transition to Spanish. Now it's my honor to introduce Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hall of Justice. This is the headquarters for the LA County Sheriff's Department. I made a promise 7 weeks ago to deliver information regarding this traffic collision involving Tiger Woods, and we're here to follow through on that promise and to share with you what we have learned regarding the collision that occurred on February 23rd in Rolling Hills Estates. And as I said at the day of the crash, we're thankful that that he survived this tragic collision. And I'd like to point out that Tiger Woods and his representatives have been very cooperative throughout this investigative process. And they've also provided us with the permission to share these findings with you. And for the record, under Section 20012 of the California Vehicle Code, the details of this report would remain confidential except for the involved parties. And this is true of the thousands of reports like this type we prepare every year throughout LA County. And no one is asking for any of those reports. And so this is treated no differently. The primary causal factor for this traffic collision was driving at a speed unsafe for the road conditions and the inability to negotiate the curve of the roadway. Estimated speeds at the first area of impact were 84 to 87 miles per hour. And the final estimated speed when the vehicle struck the tree was 75 miles per hour. There were no citations issued and there are no signs of impairment. Now, I know there are some saying that somehow he received a special or a preferential treatment any of some kind. That is absolutely false. There was no signs of impairment. Our primary concern, once we obviously at the scene of the collision, was his safety. And this is where you have to switch gears and make sure the person can survive and receives the medical care they need. And the fire department, paramedics, and that's why he was taken to a trauma center, because he obviously had compound fracture to a leg and it was life-threatening injuries. So I know there's a lot of experts who claimed, or drug recognition people said, oh, they should have drawn blood or done this or done that. And without the signs of impairment, we don't get to the point where we can actually author a search warrant and develop the probable cause to get that and execute that search warrant. So that did not happen, and that is not preferential treatment that would occur in any collision of this type based on these circumstances. And past history does not get you the elements you need to establish that probable cause. So I'll leave it at that. So now let me introduce Jim Powers, who's the captain of Lomita Sheriff Station.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for having me here. Good morning. I'm here to discuss some of the details of the traffic collision that occurred on Tuesday, February 23rd of this year at approximately 7:12 in the morning on Hawthorne Boulevard in the city of Rolling Hills Estates, involving Mr. Tiger Woods. I'd like to first introduce the deputies that were involved in this investigation. The first responding deputy is Deputy Carlos Gonzalez, who is to my right. Also Deputy Justin Smith, who is involved in the investigation after the fact, and the lead investigator, Detective Johann Schlogel, and then Sergeant Michael Downing from Traffic Services Bureau was involved in the evaluation of the data recorder of the vehicle. So upon our arrival, when Mr. Woods was involved in the collision, we responded. The vehicle was off the roadway and on its side. Mr. Woods was still inside the vehicle, his seatbelt was still worn, and the airbags had deployed. Mr. Wood appeared injured. Based on his appearance, and to prevent further injury, we waited for the paramedics to arrive to remove him from the vehicle and transport him to the hospital. There should be a slide of an aerial view. The median is depicted on the slide where the first area of impact was. There's a sign on the median that was the second area of impact, which is depicted by red dots. And then the third area of impact was on the west curb on the opposite side of Hawthorne Boulevard. And then the fourth area of impact was a tree west of the curb off the roadway, approximately 71 feet. And the blue dot that's indicated there is where the point of rest where the vehicle was. The impact of the vehicle when it hit the tree caused the vehicle to go airborne and do a somewhat pirouette, landing on its side. The follow-up investigation after the fact, as the sheriff indicated, there was no evidence of any impairment. There was no odor of alcohol. There were no open containers in the vehicle, and there were no narcotics or any evidence of medication in the vehicle or on his person. In this situation, the question was asked about, did we conduct field sobriety tests? Due to his injuries and the traumatic nature of his injuries, it would not be appropriate to do any type of field sobriety test. I will say that Tiger Woods and his management team have been in communication with us and have been throughout this entire event and have cooperated with any of our follow-up investigation questions and have responded to any of our questions and or concerns. The event data recorder was investigated, and on March 1st, we examined that data recorder after obtaining a search warrant that was signed by Judge Tony Cho of the Torrance Courthouse. There's an airbag control unit of the data recorder that showed information that we described as Event 1 and Event 2, and a combination of Event 1 and 2. Those events are areas of impact that was recorded by the recorder. The airbags were deployed, and each event shows a 5-second window, and the combination of both events show a 7-second window prior to the collision and up to the collision. The event data recorder showed speeds ranged from 82.02 miles per hour to 86.99 miles per hour and back down to 68.35 miles per hour. A second reading of this event data recorder is the acceleration pedal percentage, which is the pressure applied to the accelerator pedal during the collision. This measurement was at 99% at the area of impact, at all the area of impacts of the collision. The data recorder also recorded braking. There was no evidence of braking throughout this collision. It is speculated and believed that Tiger Woods inadvertently hit the accelerator instead of the brake pedal, causing that 99% rating on the accelerator pedal. Steering was also recorded, and it ranged from a -10 to 55. And this is on a 360-degree circular model, so it indicates that steering was made from the left and to the right, and it's believed that this could be from trying to correct from the impacts and also the impacts itself throughout the collision. Again, the estimated speeds of impact were 84 to 87 miles per hour at the median, 84, and then at the impact of the west curb line, it's estimated the speed was about 75 miles per hour. And these are estimated speeds based on the recordings from the data recorder. The cause of the collision is determined by the statements of the parties involved, any independent witnesses, facts of the scene and roadway, and the opinions of the traffic investigators. There were no independent witnesses of this collision, and the primary cause was driving at a speed unsafe for the road conditions and the inability to negotiate the curve of the roadway. No citation was issued, and there were no independent witnesses and no observations by a peace officer which would support the issuance of a citation. And that's all I have, and if you have any questions, we welcome them.
So do you want to answer, or does the sheriff want to ask first? Are you good with him?
That's fine.
Captain, thank you, Elizabeth. Captain, was there any evidence of distracted driving? I mean, did you check his phone for any texting or anything like that?
We did not check his phone for texting, and there was really no need to do that. And so there was no other evidence. The only associated factor, well, there's two factors: the speed and the failing to maintain the straight course of the curvature of the roadway. That's it. There's nothing from the cell phone to indicate any type of distracted driving.
So there was no texting or phone calls or anything around that time?
Not to our knowledge.
Captain, what about blood work? And there was a lot made about being able to draw blood at the scene, which I know is preposterous, but the notion that you did have access to blood work at the hospital, did you seek a warrant for that at all?
We did not seek a warrant because there was no indication for us to do so. And so based on all the facts, there was no evidence of any impairment or intoxication. And so in order to obtain a search warrant, You have to have probable cause to be able to articulate that, and that did not exist.
So no DRE was ever even dispatched?
We have our investigators out there, and they are qualified DREs, and so those questions were asked, and they're all indicated and documented in the report.
Thank you, sir.
Captain, can you explain this inadvertently hitting the accelerator? Can you explain that one more time?
It's believed that when you panic or you have some sort of a sudden interruption while you're driving, your initial impact is to, or your initial thought is to hit the brake, and it's believed that he may have done that, but hit the accelerator and didn't hit the brake. We don't know that. He doesn't have any recollection of the incident, and like I said, that's a speculation. There's zero braking throughout that recording of the data recorder, and it's 99% acceleration on the pedal.
Captain, wouldn't it seem to be logical to check to see if Tiger Woods was perhaps distracted using his cell phone or texting before the accident?
Well, I mean, it's not going to change anything. The cause of the collision was the speed and the inability to maintain the roadway. And so all it would have been is an associated factor, which wouldn't cause the collision. And our goal is to find out what the primary cause of this collision was, and that's it.
Did you ask him if he was texting or on the phone before the accident?
We don't have that knowledge.
Captain, considering the fact that Woods was not recalling at all the fact that he had been driving, had no recollection of it, is that not justification for doing a DRE at a later time or potentially blood alcohol test?
No, but my investigators, as they interviewed him at the scene and at the hospital, the questions were asked, and there was nothing to indicate any type of intoxication. He did answer those questions. He did not. He stated he didn't drink. He didn't. There's nothing. He's not under. He wasn't taking any medication. So those questions were asked and answered.
And was there any reason for the excessive speed? Did he justify that at all?
At this time, we're going to open it up to the phones.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question on the phone lines, please press 1, then 0 on your telephone keypad.
Captain, this yellow line, is that an accurate depiction of the
And our
steering
first question
ever
comes
veered
from
away
Craig Bickner
That's an estimate.
with KNX News Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking the call. I want to know, based on this vehicle and the way it's configured, it did have some ability for autonomous driving or autonomous capabilities. Do we know if any of those were in use at the time of this collision or before?
We do not know that answer to that question, and we did not retrieve any information like that from the data recorder.
Captain, I think that car's equipped with cameras too. Do you know if they were rolling on this thing?
Which camera, sir?
I believe that car can be equipped with cameras like a dash cam. Do you know?
I don't believe that car had any cameras equipped.
Captain, did Woods give any reason for the excessive use of speed?
No, he has no recollection of that collision, so he's not even aware of the speed until it was presented in this case.
Captain, how would you describe that speed for that situation?
It's unsafe for the conditions, just like the vehicle code reads. The speed limit posted is 45 miles per hour, and he was driving in excess of that, and it caused the collision, so it's unsafe.
Do you know
Can you
how
explain
long
why
he was
there's not a
traveling
sign-
at that high rate of speed before the collision?
No, I do not. All I know is the 7-second window that was recovered from the recorder.
Can you explain why there's not a citation if he was driving at an unsafe speed?
Part of it was because of the circumstances that he endured throughout the collision, and the fact that in order to issue a citation, it usually you have to have something to indicate an independent witness or an observation by a peace officer. And so I can't just inadvertently go out and write tickets. And I mean, you can do it, but it would be kind of, I don't want to say a waste of time, but a lot of the courts will dismiss it because it wasn't observed by a peace officer.
Captain, had somebody else been injured in this crash, how different would this investigation be? What kind of questions would you have wanted answers to that you didn't look for now?
Well, if there was a significant injury or a fatality, then we definitely would have investigated it further.
Do you think you asked enough questions and got enough answers from Tiger Woods?
Absolutely.
Captain, did he try and correct his steering at all, or was it basically straight off the road like this?
There's indication of steering. Where I gave the examples of the steering. So there was steering in the vehicle at the areas of impact, and it's unsure if it was him trying to correct the situation or if it was the impact of the vehicle at the areas of impact that caused that by the movement of the vehicle.
The first impact is what you,
I'm sorry?
he drove it, the first impact, he drove right into it. It wasn't even correct at all.
It's a raised median, so there was impact, and it did have an impact on the vehicle. Yes.
Captain, can you tell us a little bit about your conversations with Tiger Woods in the moments that led up to the accident, what he remembers, what he doesn't recall?
I can, in what I've reviewed in this situation, he is in a state of shock at the onset of that collision. He was awake. We helped him sit up a little bit, and then we tried to extract him from the vehicle by breaking the sunroof, and it wouldn't break. And so we waited for the fire department. So he was, I don't want to use the word alert, but he was kind of dazed and confused, being in a state of shock. And then he was interviewed at the hospital as well, and he was coherent. His speech was normal, and there are interviews of him at the hospital where he's answering questions in the emergency room.
My question is leading up to the car accident, what he remembers doing moments before the car accident. What did he say he remembered doing before the crash?
I don't have the answer to that question.
I assume those questions were asked, if he was distracted.
Well, I know that I know that there was allegations of an incident that occurred prior to the collision, which I reviewed video footage, and he was. I watched him on video walk out to his car, put his personal belongings in his car, and drive off the property. And he was driving very normal, very slow, as he began driving, to the point where it didn't appear that he even hit the accelerator. He took his foot off the brake and allowed the car to roll away. He made complete stops at 2 stop signs and stopped for a traffic signal before entering the highway. And so there's no evidence of any increased speed or rush behavior.
I guess leading up to the crash, though, was Tiger Woods late to an appointment? Was he on his cell phone? What did he tell you about the moments leading up to the crash, why he may have been traveling at that speed?
I don't believe he recalls that. The only statement I recall seeing in the report is that he had a long day the day prior.
We can take another question from a caller.
Thank you. Our next question on the phone comes from Brendan Geoffrion with TMZ. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sheriff. The sheriff said the day after the accident, no crime was committed. This is speeding and reckless driving that we're talking about. So how did you arrive at the conclusion that there was no crime?
Well, speeding is an infraction, and it's not criminal in nature like a misdemeanor or a felony, and there's no evidence of reckless driving, so that statement was never made.
Another question is, if Tiger was driving 85 to 87 miles an hour in a 45 zone, why no ticket for reckless driving or speeding?
Because reckless driving, you have to have multiple violations in conjunction with one another, like multiple unsafe lane changes, passing vehicles in an unsafe manner, kind of like road rage stuff, and that did not exist here. Therefore, reckless driving is not appropriate. And the speeding,
Last question.
There was no independent witnesses regarding the speeding, and it wasn't observed by a peace officer, so no citation was issued.
Captain, how
Last
often
question
is that
for you.
the
In
case?
your opinion, did Tiger make a conscious effort to avoid the accident?
We don't know that.
Captain, how often is that the case? Woods walked away without the citation. When you consider other drivers and crashes similar to this, how often is that the case, that they are not cited later because of the excessive speed?
Each case is decided on an individual basis, case by case basis, and so in situations like this, the decision was made not to issue a citation. That's it.
And why was that decision made in this case?
Well, as I stated, there was no independent witness to support that saw the violation, and there was no deputy sheriffs or peace officers that witnessed the violation.
Let me add to that real quick. The decision not to issue a citation would be the exact same thing for anyone in this room who went through the same situation, a solo traffic collision. There's no witness, it's an infraction only, and we're not going to issue a citation on an infraction not committed in a peace officer's presence or independent witnesses, period. That would apply to everybody. So any inference that somehow is special is false.
Despite the evidence that you have on the event data recorder?
The event data recorder, that tells us physically what happened, but we need a human being to witness it.
There was quite a bit of discussion after this accident about this particular stretch of roadway?
Yes.
Have there been adjustments made on the roadway? And how much of this accident do you blame on the roadway versus the driver?
Well, this stretch of particular roadway, I believe we spoke a few weeks